Right, we're now recording. So, without further ado, welcome everyone to our session today on Clay What? Everything you need to know about Clay. I'm Nicola, co-founder of CMO Circle, and Clay has featured quite extensively in our WhatsApp chat recently. And I realized that while I mention it on a regular basis, I really have no idea on what it actually does. And it turns out I'm not alone, as over 50% of you also said that your Clay knowledge was pretty shocking. Well, thank goodness for Mark Colgan. Not only is he a B2B sales expert and has been using Clay for over 2 years, he's also one of the best sales consultants and teachers I know. So thank you, Mark, for giving up your time today to transform all of us into Clay experts. No pressure at all.
Cool. Thank you, Nicola. Really appreciate the intro, and it's just nice to have a captive audience because I talk about Clay to my wife all the time, and she gets incredibly bored about me talking about it. So it's great that I can chew your ears off for an hour.
Fantastic. Well, please, everyone, do introduce yourselves in chat. Share how you are currently using Clay, if at all, and ask your burning questions, and we'll do our best to get to them all. So, over to you, Mark.
Thank you, thank you. So just to give an idea of the structure of today, what I want to do is just start off by explaining what Clay is and how to think about it. I think that's really important. You can have a look at their website, spend a few minutes and get really confused about what it actually can do. So I'll break it down in a very simple way. Then I want to walk you through 3 different demos or use cases of examples, and I'll show you how it all works and behind the scenes. As I go through those, if you have questions, pop them in the chat. Nicola's going to do her best to keep an eye on that, and I'll look at the chat as well because we can pause after each demo so that I can answer those questions. And then we'll have plenty of time for Q&A at the end. So I don't want to overwhelm you with stuff, but when I was first learning Clay, which was from about 2 years ago, I found that I learned it a lot quicker when I actually had a use case, when I knew what it was that I wanted to achieve with the tool. And I used to work in as a HubSpot and Salesforce CRM consultant and MarTech consultant. So I do understand that my mind is a little bit more technically process oriented. When I shut my eyes, I see workflows. So when I go to sleep, but I'm going to do my best to try and explain it in a way that's as simple to follow without having to be like a Salesforce admin or HubSpot. But the reason I mention these 2 tools is because when you first used the CRM that you're using today, you didn't know your way around it like you do today. And I think a lot of people have the expectation of tools today, and Clay in particular, that they'll be able to get it straight from the beginning. But it's really not the case. It takes a lot of time and a lot of hours of frustration trying to work out why something isn't working. A little bit like that custom field not being named the same way and it not mapping. We've probably both all been through those challenges. So I will get started very shortly. I'm going to share my screen. Are there any questions, Nicola, that I need to address before we start?
No, I think everyone is just very excited to upskill in this space.
All right. Okay. Oh, Nicola, just a little bit disappointed you didn't say Clay. What? Because that was how you were supposed to say the title. But
I was even
um,
you, Mark.
okay. Oh, by the way, I've got a document here which we'll be sharing after alongside the recording. It has links for additional recommendations and resources to learn Clay. There's a few free versions, and then there's a new course which came out by like a business friend of mine who put together a really good Clay course for under 100. It's £100. So if it's something that you want to invest in, or maybe you've got a team member, it's a very, very comprehensive course for £100. I have no affiliation other than it's just great. So, Clay. The best way to think about Clay is like it's a spreadsheet that can talk to the other data sources. And then you might be thinking, well, what the hell can I do with that? But I'll explain. The way that I like to describe Clay and to ask people to think about their workflow is before you even open up Clay, you typically will have a data source or an input somewhere. So that could be a lead database like Apollo or Zoom Info, and you've got data that you're already paying for or collecting there. Or it might be your CRM, or maybe it's a CSV file. If you've been scanning badges at conferences, that could be the CSV file that you have. Your LinkedIn and LinkedIn data, you could even scrape data. And I'm going to show an example of scraping in one of the demos. And also webhooks. If you're not familiar with webhooks, it's just a way for data to be pushed from one place to another. A common example, if you're not using HubSpot forms, you might have a form on your WordPress website or Webflow website, and that data, once somebody has filled out the form, is pushed to a marketing automation system or any other database. That's usually done via a webhook, whether you know it or not. That's what that technology is. So you have your data, and that's called your input data, and then you put it into Clay. So within Clay, you can pretty much do whatever you can conceivably dream of with that data. So that might be that you think about account research. Let's say that your organization is working with 1,000 accounts. That's one of your target ICPs, but you want to know information about these accounts, which could be what financial news they have, if they've raised any funding recently, how many people in a particular department. It could be how many open roles are they hiring, and how many specific job titles. So you could search for SDR roles. So that's like the research level. Then you have enrichment, which is kind of the same. You can also build lists in Clay, but typically find that it's more valuable to build a list outside of Clay and then refine the list inside Clay. So layering in additional data points that you can't get necessarily in the databases that you're using. You can do scoring, and you can track signals as well, or triggers. Signals and triggers is often used interchangeably. You can also do AI personalization, really sophisticated stuff, but it takes a bit of time to get it working, and AI copywriting as well. One of the things that Clay also does is it opens up your access to hundreds of other tools. So within Clay, you can connect to a tool called Twain, which I had some involvement in the product development of, which is probably the only tool that I would trust to write a cold email for me with AI. All of the others fall short. All of the others look like, oh, hey, John, I see you live in London and you must breathe oxygen. Do you want a demo? Like that's pretty much the level of personalization. Whereas Twain is fantastic, and you can access Twain via Clay. Don't worry, I'm going to show you Clay in just a second. So you have your input data, you put it into Clay, you do whatever it is that you're trying to do with it, which could be enriching inbound leads, for example, and then you have to decide where you want that data to go. Do you sync that with your CRM and update data? A classic example is actually put a one in the chat if you've heard of Clearbit in the past. Have you ever heard the tool Clearbit? Okay, brilliant. Yeah, customer of Clearbit, great. So similar to Clearbit, you essentially could just have a field on your form which has the company domain, and then that then pushes to Clay, and you can do all of the research and then push it back to your CRM, for example. So that is what you can do in Clay. And like I said, you have to go and see where you want that data. So sync with your CRM. Maybe it goes to Salesloft Outreach or whatever engagement tool you're using for outbound. It could go into various other databases like a CDP, a customer data platform like Segment, for example, if you're pushing it there, or you can keep it as a CSV, or you can also connect via APIs if you want it directly into your product, for example. But I feel like explaining all of those would be getting a bit too technically in the weeds. So I'm going to share some demos. The first demo is account research and then finding people within those accounts. So I'll walk through those two different steps. But this was something I built for a client. So, but what I want you to think about is if imagine this was your form fields in any of your gated content, or maybe of your webinars, for example. I'll walk through that. The next demo will be take everybody who signed up for this webinar and find the details of them, and very meta, and then Instagram profiles to gift ideas as well. So I just wanted to show a more creative use case of Clay. But before I get on with the first demo, do I have any questions at all?
Nope, I think we're all good, Mark.
Mhm.
Excited for the demo.
Excellent. Okay, cool. So here I'm going to demonstrate the account research. What we have set up here is we have a couple of input fields, and then Clay is going to do its enrichment magic. And then it's also going to use OpenAI to give us some summaries, I guess is the easiest way to think about it. So the only thing that I need to add into this sheet is the company name, the company domain, and the LinkedIn company URL. That is all I need to do. It's going to go and work automatically because I've set the table up to do so. So to use the example of an inbound lead, for example, your form that you're collecting that inbound lead from, or your calendar booking, Chili Piper, HubSpot meetings, Calendly, whatever it may be, all you would need to do is push that data into a similar table to this, and it's going to enrich the data for you. So what's happening here? Oh, no, I skipped a bit. Sorry. Down here. So how does Clay work? Every column that you can see in Clay is usually a way to enrich the data. So in the column heading, you set up the settings for that enrichment. And I've got an example here. So in this example, we want to look at the company domain and run an ICP analysis. So we want to know who are their ideal client profiles, what personas do they sell to, what industries do those personas exist in, and what's the value proposition. That all can be achieved with one prompt in Clay. And then the next thing that we might want to do is to find out if the company offers a demo. And then we also might want to build a list of clients that they work with. So what clients does this company have? So to show you what I mean by, if you think of a column as a enrichment, so the first enrichment we mentioned was the ICP analysis. So we've added the enrichment, and there's two steps to this. The first is you need to give the enrichment the instructions. So this is what the instructions look like. Now, Clay released something recently which it helps you use AI to create the prompt. So you can literally just say, I want to find out who the ideal client profile of this company is and tell me who the job titles they sell to. And Clay's AI will create this instructions for the prompt. So that you don't have to be amazing at prompting to use Clay anymore. Whereas the last year and a half, you kind of did need to know your way around a decent prompt. In this example, it's saying, you are an analyst who is an expert in marketing and ideal client profiles. I'm analyzing company name, and the website is company domain. These might look like merge tags, which you've probably seen in your newsletter builders or in your emails that you've sent in the past. It works exactly the same. What we're doing here is we're telling Clay to reference data that exists elsewhere in the table. So this company name is calling this column, and this company domain is calling this column. And then your job is to figure out what is company name's ICP, what industries do they target, what personas do they target, and what's the primary value proposition. This was all created by Clay. So I won't read all of this, but this is the total prompt. And then what you get from that prompt is an answer. And the answer comes in a few different sections. So here we've got the ICP. Then we have the personas. Then we have the overall response. So that's kind of the whole answer in one go. And if I was to scroll down, you'd see value proposition as well. So that's great. We've got the data, but it's all in a big chunk of text. How do we get that data into a more usable column? And how you do that actually is quite simple in Clay. Is if I scroll back in, you hover over the section here. Let's see, that's the prompt. And you would then just add this personas section as a new column. I can show you what that button looks like. It's just a click of a button. So to go back, we've got the prompt, and for every row in this table now, it's going to run the same prompt for every row. And it's going to give us the answer for Ballbix, for Kibo Commerce, for Beamery, for Beekeeper, for Basis, on and on and on and on. So if I scroll down here, and then you repeat the same process for the other type of data that you want to find. If you were looking for the ICP analysis, if they had a demo and their customers, it would be very hard to get one prompt to give you that answer in a really clear way. So if you have requirements, think about if they can be separated. So in the first enrichment, we're looking at the ICP analysis. In the second enrichment, it's checking their website to see if they have a book a demo field or call to action on the website. And then on the third one, it's looking at their website to see which customers they reference on their site. And now this data is put into these different columns for you. So I'm going to show a more walkable version of that. Put a 1 if I've lost you already. And it's okay if I have, because I can speed up or slow down.
All looking good.
Okay, so the same logic. Any column, the column heading has the enrichment settings and then the answer. So here, for this row and for every row, I'm trying to find the company headcount. The company headcount growth, sorry. And it's looking at the LinkedIn company profiles and it's looking at the company domain to give that answer. And then I've got employee count as well. So this is how many employees the company has. But for this particular use case, this is for a client, they sell sales training. So they wanted to know how many people do they have in the sales department. So it's great to know that they have over X amount of employees, but how many of those specifically are in sales? Well, we can easily ask Clay to tell us that. We can ask it to look at the LinkedIn company profile and look for jobs that mention sales. So now we've gone from having 400, knowing that they have 480 to having 64 people in sales. But even better, now think about this as kind of account scoring or lead scoring. Now they want to know, is this company currently hiring in sales? So we can search for that as well. And we are looking for any job title with the keyword sales, and the location specifically for this use case was United Kingdom. You could search the whole world if you wanted to. And we can see that there was no jobs found at Comply Advantage or on Fido, but we did find one at Modular, and we found 9 at Darktrace. So my client now is thinking, well, actually, I'm going to prioritize my marketing and my outreach to those who are actively hiring and they have more than 5 roles, for example. So they can use this data to build a model or a score based on the enrichment answers that we're getting. Furthermore, are they hiring SDRs, a very specific job title? Again, we can find this out if we search for these specific job titles. And notice that I've got variations of the job title here. So we're looking for either SDR or sales development rep or business development rep in the United Kingdom. So we can output the answer here. One great little hack about Clay is this doesn't cost you anything when it can't find the data. So I'll say that again. If it can't find the data for your particular enrichment, it doesn't cost you anything. So if I'm using outreach as an example here, but if you wanted to only reach out to companies who didn't have a head of HR or head of people, you could essentially enrich a huge list and only pay for those where it tells you that they do. Ugo, I'll be able to answer that in just a second as well. Matthew said, so do we not trust Clay to write outbound AI personalized content and prefer to connect somehow to Twain? Yeah, at the moment, in the state of AI and how good AI is at writing cold emails that actually sound human and natural, Twain is the only tool that I've seen at the moment that can do it. I think the risk that I see, so I do a lot of coaching and training with sales teams, and it's very easy to click a button and hit send when you've got targets to hit. When you rely on AI to write copy and you have sales reps who are just under a lot of pressure to hit their targets, I see that a lot of bad copy goes out. I would encourage people to maybe use AI to help craft a better message, but not write the message itself. An example being, you could look at this data here and you might reach out to somebody at Darktrace and say, I see that you're actively hiring or you're growing in terms of the amount of SDRs you're bringing on board. What are you doing to ensure that their ramp time is as efficient and quick as possible? Now, that was no AI, that was Mark AI, but I've used the data that I've found to help inform what that message would be. So just moving on, looking at sales enablement roles as well. So do they have a sales enablement team? Again, this is very, very specific to my particular client. So that's some of the data enrichment, but that's information that's available in any database or information that's available on LinkedIn. It's just really hard for us to do this at scale, except for if you're using Clay. But now we want to do an ICP analysis. Edit column. So I'm using OpenAI and I'm saying, you're an analyst who specializes in marketing and ideal customer profiles. You can see this is the same prompt that I used before. So for me, I can reuse prompts, or you can reuse prompts across different tables that you're building if you're using Clay. And what I wanted it to do is to give me the ICP, the industries, the persona, and the value proposition. Remember, I said that you can hover over a section and add it to a column. I'll show you how to do that. So here, I can hover over these individual results and add them as a column. So that's how easy it is to get some of this information into an additional column for you. Just add as column. I can just create the column. I'll delete it later. And it will add in the industries there. It will take a little bit of time to catch up. So if we want to have a look to see what the ICP, the industries, the personas, and value proposition is, we can just simply expand the contact record or account record. And we can see that the ICP is organizations in the financial and health risk sectors that aim to improve their compliance. Industries are banks, crypto, corporates, insurance, lending. The personas, and then a value proposition. One thing I skipped actually was we're using ChatGPT to look at recent news about this company as well. That's for the sales rep to read before they reach out to the prospect. So this is the prompt here is to say, find me all news since the 1st of January 2024. So you kind of need to give it that constraint because otherwise it might look at the entire company history and give you true and accurate news, but outdated news in the sense that it came out 5 or 6 years ago. And the last thing that we're asking it to do as well is to look to pull out 3 customer names that we can find on their website that we could maybe reference when we're writing cold emails to this particular prospect. So that's the account research. John, how much time goes into setting up this kind of template? To be honest, a lot of the time is thinking about what is possible and what's not possible, and what do we really need versus what's just a nice to have. Because you can go down a complete rabbit hole by trying to analyze the sentiment of the last 3 job posts, LinkedIn posts that they shared to try and give you something for an AI personalized line. And then you learn that the majority of your prospects you're reaching out to aren't even on LinkedIn and actively posting. So planning, once the planning is done, then like creating the columns isn't, that's like creating a new column in a Google Sheet. Very, very simple. But playing around with the prompt to get it giving you the answer that you want, hours is the answer in reality, even for somebody who's experienced in it as well. John, yes, you'll get a copy of this presentation and some templates as well, which I'll share with you as well.
Just one
Yes.
question for me. You mentioned that you don't get charged if there's no response, but how does Clay charge? Because I've just realized I have no idea.
Yeah, very good question. So there's 2 kind of ways, and I'm trying to think of a good way to explain this. I'm going to say, when I explained it to this client, I told them that there's going to be a fixed cost and then there's a variable cost. And what I mean by that is I think this one has, so Dark Trace found 9 jobs and 11 SDRs. So there's something wrong with my setup there. And then it found 12 people in the sales development function. That cost me 3 credits because it found the data. You don't now I don't want to get, there's layers to this as well. This is really hard to explain the pricing. For this particular enrichment that we're looking for searching for open roles, if it can't find the data, it doesn't charge you. Other enrichments, like checking for an email to find an email address, it does charge you. And I don't have a list of all the things it does and all the things it doesn't because I kind of learn as I go as well.
And what's the sort of price per credit?
It depends on your plan. So the 140, I think it's $1. Yeah, $1 is 13 credits if you're on the cheapest $149 a month plan.
Okay. And just to help us benchmark, this is probably an impossible question, but what would you say is the average spend some of your clients have for clay to use it in the best possible?
Yeah, it depends what they're doing with it. And then it depends on the features that they need. So I have one client who wants to integrate Clay with Salesforce, and that's very important for them. You have to be on the 800 a month plan to unlock that integration feature with Clay. With the 800 a month plan, they get something like 50,000 credits. But the use case that we're using Clay for them is only using 3 to 5 credits per row that they enrich. So we're doing very, very specific enrichments, which is account research for their account executives and their SDRs who have been spending hours each week doing the research manually. But because we can do it at scale, we're never going to use the 50,000 a month credits for them. And we get that data directly piped into Salesforce for $800 a month. Now, you but in a different use case, you could use 2,000 credits a month. Sorry, you could pay $149 for 2,000 credits a month and accidentally waste those in 10 minutes. So as Clay are moving up market to sell more to the mid-market and enterprise organizations, they are building features which help you model out credit usage, helps you stop wasting credits. And Clay are very good, by the way. If you were to go to their support and say, "Hey, I made a mistake. You can see that all of my credits have disappeared. Can you add them back in?" They're usually pretty good at it. Obviously, if you abuse that, then they become a bit wise to it. But they're quite kind in that sense.
Yeah, I agree with you, John. We need a simplified model, but thank you, Mark, for trying to explain.
Yeah, no, it's like I have to do a whole spreadsheet model to say one row will cost you anywhere between X and Y. But again, and then I have to say like, but don't change anything because if you change something or add things to it, then that's going to impact the pricing too. So I'm conscious of the time. We've got our account research, but now we want to find the people. Well, automatically, we're going to find those people because we've connected Clay to Apollo. And Apollo is a pretty comprehensive database of B2B contacts. And what it's doing is when we add an, oh, I forgot to do it. I'm going to add some new people in. So I'm going to take these companies and I picked a couple of companies of attendees here as well. There's nothing confidential that you can't find on LinkedIn. And I'm going to add them here so we can paste them in. Okay, so if you look at my credits, I've got 5,765 credits. Okay. Now I'm going to paste these in. It's always a bit slower when you're, see, it doubled it. It's really annoying. That only happens when I'm sharing on Zoom. So what's happening now is it's going to automatically do the research for me. So it's first of all going to enrich the company, find me the employee count, find the total sales, if they're hiring in sales, etc., etc. And it's also looking for particular job titles that I want to target. Now, I think this took about 10, 15 seconds to enrich all this data. If I refresh this, I don't want to do it because it can be a bit, when you're sharing on Zoom, it can be a bit temperamental, but there is only 4 rows here. The other 4 disappear. If we look at my credits, I can't remember what I said. Can anybody remember what I said? No. it wasn't a lot. It wasn't a lot of credits. Um, so in here, like I said, I want to find people, and here are the job titles that I'm looking for: SVP of Sales, CMO, Head of Sales Enablement, Head of Business Development. But where is that data going? Well, you actually can push that data to a different table within Clay, which is the Find People table, which I've just clicked on down at the bottom. And now I can see, of those companies I added from Clio down, these are the different people with their job title and when they first joined, when they started in that role. That's another important data point for this particular client, because if somebody started in the last 90 days, they may be still evaluating whether they want to bring in sales training for the team. So we have this now is saying, if somebody has, I think that looks confusing. You can use AI to say, if the person joined in the last 90 days, output yes. And that's what's happening here. So my client is doing the research, and then they're also using additional data points to segment and prioritize the accounts that they want to reach out to. So this person, Darina, she joined on the 1st of January 2025. So when they're going through their call lists, or when they're going through their outbound motions, they're going to prioritize the people who have a higher likelihood of being open to buy right now. Ali's asked, is there a B2B data source that's best for smaller businesses? It's a tough question to answer. I've just produced a whole course on list building with a company called Triple Session. I think it's about 2 hours of content. And the answer is it depends. But Apollo is pretty good in terms of coverage for smaller businesses. However, if you're targeting restaurants, coffee shops, barbers, or services like HVAC, roofers, plumbers, then there isn't a great database for those types of small businesses. So it really does depend on specifically who your ideal client profile is. Maybe put more in the chat, and I can expand on that. So this is just the first demo. This was probably the most complicated one, but I've gone through how to do account research and how you could potentially score accounts based on the data that you get Clay to give you back, and then shown you how quickly you can find the contacts here, and then look at specific data points like how new are they in their role to help prioritize outreach. And I know that this is the CMO circle. This was very much a sales or an outbound related example, but it's probably one of the more comprehensive ones that I have to demonstrate it for you. So I'm going to pause, grab a sip of water. Nicola or anybody else, do you have any questions at all?
I think you've done a great job of answering them as we go. Anyone got any additional questions? And yes, I promise we will be sharing all of these prompts stock and the recording, because I'm guessing a lot of you want to go back over this.
Okay, no questions. That means time for demo number 2. So this one can be very sneaky. It also could be very useful for you in your business. If you're hosting webinars yourself, or you are attending industry webinars, you can use Clay to get a better picture about who the people are that attended. And I'm going to show you how to do that. This is the table that I've already got set up. What it's going to do is I am going to cheekily scrape all of your detail, all of your information. Now, I'm not sure if you're going to see this because this is the magic part. No, it's because I'm just sharing my tab. Can you see a box that just opened called Instant Data Scraper?
Oh,
Oh, you can. Oh, awesome.
no, I can't. I can just see the guess. That's it. Sorry,
Oh,
no.
okay. I'll put a screenshot. I'm just going to copy the data. So copy, and then I'm going to paste here. What I've done is I've taken all of the names from here, Abby, Adam, Eamon, and the profile link behind them. So Alan Gleason's profile link on Luma. And I've now pasted that into a doc here. just going to swap around my columns. Hold, give me a second. So now I've got the name and the Luma profile, and that's all I need to find out where your home address is. I'm kidding. I can't do that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this is in alphabetical order. I'm going to take a random sample, 20 records here. And in my pre-built table, I'm just going to add the names and the Luma URL profile. Now, what's happening in the background is it's actually going to Google to try and find Francis McPherson. And what I've done is give a prompt to say they are likely to be working in marketing because that's the context that I have. Also, some Luma profile pages have a LinkedIn URL. So I think if you go on my Luma profile page in the RSVP, you can see that it has a LinkedIn. So it's going to find that very, very quickly. But it's not going to be able to find Jessica because it's just the first name. And there might be quite a few Jessicas that work in marketing. So with all of this sort of data enrichment and building lists and scraping data, you have to understand like where it could go wrong. And that's a lot of the things that I help my clients with as well is one real classic example, and I think a lot of you may be doing this, is you most likely are scoring leads or building lists via revenue numbers. So you might be looking at your total addressable market and saying, well, companies over 20 million to 200 million are our ideal client. But there isn't really a truly accurate data source for private companies' revenue numbers. And different data sources will tell you a different thing. So Clay actually just raised a round of funding. They did over 30 million in 2024. I looked at 5 different sources. One source said that they're doing 7 million a year. Another database said that they're doing between 1 and 10. And then one database even said that they're doing 34 million in 2025, which again is inaccurate because we're only in February. So when you are thinking of your data points, you've got to think about where can things go wrong. Okay, we're getting some data back now. This was because it has to go off to Google and search. Here we're finding some people. Now, it might not be correct. So this is the other thing that you need to factor in as well, but I'm just kind of showing you what's possible. I'm then cleaning the LinkedIn URL to get it to look to a certain format. And again, this is something that just takes time to understand in Clay is like some things trip up the automations. And then I'm getting, I think, is Fabrice here? I'm not sure. Is anyone on, I'm not going to show anything private or confidential, so don't worry, but is anybody here?
I can see me. I can
You
see
can see
that.
you, John.
Yeah.
Okay. John Lyons. And I believe that's you.
Yeah, that's me.
Um,
John.
Hi, my name is John. Okay.
It is. It is.
Well done,
So
Claire.
we have got emails being looked at, but I won't show those. But one thing that I did, just to again give you a use case of Clay, I asked it to look at John's profile, and give me one professional statistic or fact, um, and one personal or something more fun and unique. So let's have a look. I've lost you again, John. John. So I can open up this. So hopefully this should be accurate. So John, do you in fact have 20 years of experience as a practical hands-on marketer helping both brands like Deutsche Bank, Manchester United, Lego, and LG?
That's me. Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Unique and specific fact mentions owning a hat as a quirky and personal touch at the end of his about section, showcasing his personality and distinct character.
I
There
don't
we
have a
go.
personality. I have a hat.
Do you have funky socks as well, just as a backup?
No.
Colorful socks? No. Okay. So yeah, we have now gone from having a list of strangers on a webinar sign up to something which is pretty personal and not too invasive, about John, for example. Now, of course, because the source of the data was quite unreliable in the sense that we didn't have the LinkedIn profiles of everybody, which would be very, very reliable. We would probably have to scan through this and just check manually to see whether that profile does look like it was that person, in this specific use case. So I'm going to pause here and see if anybody has any questions at all.
There's one from John. Is Clay providing PI data via waterfall in EMEA? I don't even know what that means.
When you say PII or P2 data, John, what's that?
Different, John, but that'll be personal identifiable information. So
Okay. Yes, it does. So via a water, so you may have heard of waterfall enrichment. It's very simple to think through. There's lots of different data providers that have data on people, but not every data provider has the same data. So I might exist in Apollo and Zoom Info, but I might not appear in Cognizant. These are quite well-known databases. So if you're looking for me and you only have a subscription to Cognizant, I'm not going to appear there. Therefore, I may not be a prospect that you could reach out to, even though I do fit your criteria. What waterfall enrichment does is it will look for Mark Colgan in Cognizant first. If I can't be found, it will then go to Zoom Info. And because I exist in Zoom Info as a contact record, it stops and says, we found him. Here's the details that we have on Mark. And waterfall enrichment essentially just works. I think it should be called stair step, but it's a little bit harder to explain. It's not as catchy. If it's found in one data, if it's not found, it moves to the next data provider. If it's not found there, it moves to the next one. And you could have around 10 different data providers to help you find that data. And that's what Clay enables in waterfall enrichment. And I don't want to reveal any emails. So let me just show SMB. Okay. So here's exactly what I mentioned. It's going to look for the full name, using the full name, the company name, and the LinkedIn URL. It's first going to look at Lead Magic to see if they can find the email. If it can't be found in Lead Magic, then it's going to use Find Email. If it can't be found in Find Email, it'll go to Prospio, and etc., 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 until it either finds the email or doesn't find the email. So that's what in waterfall enrichment means. Ugo, that was another extension called Instant Data Scraper. It looks like this, a little Pokemon. I don't know why. It's a Pokemon icon. And it's a Chrome extension that allows you to do it very simply. Web scraping can be quite challenging sometimes for picking up data, but Instant Data Scraper is pretty good for Luma anyway. Thank you, Nicola. Nikki, just to clarify, those tools, Lead Magic, is accessible via Clay, or you need to have a license for you? Good question. And back to the pricing team needs to have a hard conversation. So all of these data tools are accessible via Clay. If you don't have your own account with Lead Magic, for example, it will cost you 1 credit to look into to look for Clay to look into Lead Magic for you to find the email. Then if it can't find the email in Lead Magic, it still costs Clay a credit, or it's cost you a credit to use Clay to do so. So then it's going to look at Find Email, and it's going to cost 2 credits in Find Email just because that's the pricing that they have agreed with Clay. Let's say, for example, it found the email after Find Email had the email, then that's cost you 3 credits to get that information. However, Nikki, the caveat is you can have your own subscription with some of these tools and use a direct API connection to do so. So I have a Lead Magic account, which I pay, I think, $79 a month for, and it uses my key. And it's cheaper for me to do this because the pricing for Lead Magic's credit system is cheaper if I just buy a subscription in Lead Magic and use it directly. How many tools do you need to get the best out of Clay? Again, John, it depends what you're trying to do. And that's the really hard thing about Clay. If it's just list building and enrichment, then I'd say that you want a database provider. So it could be Apollo, and a email validation or email finding and validation. So Lead Magic or Prospio and Clay. I spoke to somebody else the other day. I talk people out of buying clay as well because sometimes you don't need it. If your ideal client profiles are quite defined, you have really good segmentation of your personas, you don't need all this fancy stuff. You might just need to write really good copy that resonates with the problems and the pain points that the personas are facing. And you just need Apollo and an email sender for that. Or you could even do email sending in Apollo too. So I don't like, if you're in Pavilion, I am too. I often see that people jump and give clay as the answer all the time. But the reality is sometimes it's not the answer and you're just overcomplicating it. But when someone's trying to sell a service as a clay expert, then of course they're going to say, yes, you must use it. Nicola, we've got a little bit of time. The next one's really simple and is a little bit more fun. I'm going to go on to that. I think let me jump into that demo and then we'll have time to
Now,
wrap
that's
up.
one quick question off the back of that last one.
Yes, go for it, John.
So on that basis, is it a volume play where clay becomes more valuable?
It's how, I guess, the way, how complex and smart do you want to be with your outbound? And I think if you need to be complex, or if you have if you need to find data which is very hard to access elsewhere, then there's more likelihood that you'd want to use clay. So the person who I talked out of clay is, they do video testimonials for manufacturing companies. Really good video customer testimonials for manufacturing companies. You don't need clay for that. He's convinced he needs AI, and I'm trying to. It's a friend of mine. It's his dad, and I'm being as blunt with him as possible and saying, don't worry about clay. Don't worry about AI. You've got the people. You have their LinkedIn profiles. Just send them a bloody message.
Perfect.
But yeah. Okay, Nicola, the next example that I want to talk about is, I've never used this in real life, but I just wanted to share, is I'm going to take an Instagram profile, nobody here except for Nicola and myself, and use clay to come up with 3 gift ideas under $100. I know some of you may be using kind of like Sendoso or some of the other tools for sending a direct mail. So Nicola, I did this one I prepared earlier, and I want to know
I
whether,
have no idea that this
yeah, I
happened.
didn't tell Nicola.
Not
So
something prepped.
how many of the 3 would you be happy to receive, let's say? So the first is a weighted blanket, which is a practical and thoughtful gift that can help with sleep and relaxation. Second option is a Harney and Sons heirloom tea chest, which is a unique gift packed with a variety of tea flavors, perfect for tea lovers. And the last one, I think I know you'll want this one, is the Solo Stove Mesa tabletop fire pit, which is an excellent way to add ambience for cozy evenings outdoors. So of those 3, how many of those would you be happy to receive?
1 and 3, definitely. Tea would be nice, but not
Okay,
a gift. So that's not bad. 2 out
not
of,
bad.
and not
Let's
something that I would have naturally thought of. So there'd be quite a surprise and delight rather than,
good.
oh,
Well, in 10 minutes, you'll have a knock on the door. And no, I'm not a magician. I haven't got anything coming your way, I'm afraid.
that's really disappointing. I was a blanket.
So I'm going to put in 5 or 6 company people here, and just to show you who they are, all people that you should know: Brian Halligan of HubSpot, Sheryl Sandberg, Seth Godin, April Dunford, and Anne Handley, marketers or business people. And I pasted that just a second ago, and it's already pulling out some information. And what I've done is I've worked on a prompt to try and help me get this information. So the prompt is: act as a social media analyst, visit the Instagram profile of this profile, scrutinize posts for recurring subjects, locations, activities, or hobbies, making note of patterns or themes. List observations about what the person might enjoy doing in their spare time. Present the findings in a concise text format. And here, so if you know Brian Halligan or if you've ever heard him talk, he often references the Grateful Dead. He mentions that they did some of the best marketing ever, and a lot of the inspiration of HubSpot's marketing came from them. So consider a Grateful Dead t-shirt. I think this is amazing. He is a Boston Red Sox fan, so get him a stylish Red Sox cap. Since he enjoys traveling, think about a high quality travel mug, portable phone charger, or travel journal. I pulled in my one because I thought it was quite funny. Um, I think it may have changed. Yeah, once something said that Mark likes boats, and I was like, I wish. I'm not on boats often, but maybe. Oh, here's one. Um, as evidenced by posts from Lisboa, Alentejo, and Herdade de Sombroso Wine and Country House. That was somewhere that I went and tagged the location in a few months ago. I'm not too active on Instagram. Um, Numerous posts featuring his wedding and partner. Uh, yeah, he seems to enjoy celebrations and boating. I think it sums me up pretty well. Um, just real quick, let me just show you how I can use AI to build this. It's the last thing I want to show you. So I want to add an enrichment. So I've clicked on this column, add enrichment. I'm going to click on AI and then use AI. Now this is where I'm going to use Clay's AI to write the AI prompt. So I'm going to type help me. And then I say, I need gift ideas. I'm just going to use the same examples. Gift ideas under $100. I only, oh, sorry, it's always terrible when I'm being recorded. I only have the Instagram profile. Now I'm going to click generate prompt. And it's going to take a while.
Oh, that's such a good point. This is great for Christmas presents. Secret Santa.
Yes. So this is the suggested prompt. It all looks like a bit of jargon. Just ignore that. Click accept. It's already picked up that I said I just have their Instagram. I didn't say which column. So it's already found that, okay, this column has Instagram links in, therefore it must be the Instagram one. And these are all, again, I didn't do anything with this. I just asked it to generate it. I'm going to save and run 10 rows. And as it's working or as it's running, Nicola, do we have any questions? I'm just conscious of the time now as well.
I've just asked,
Oh yeah.
standing. I have a couple. So while it's running, Mark, what could you just play around with for free on Clay? Like, if you're an absolute beginner like me, what would you recommend to just get started? Because I think I'm a little bit frozen. This has been really helpful, but really I need to just go and get going. So without having to pay,
Yeah.
I'll be able to do.
Well, I always throw the question back, what are you trying to do? And I think have a use case in mind. Let's just say, Nicola, for the CMO circle, you've got people in this webinar who are members of the CMO circle and in the WhatsApp group, and there's people who aren't.
Yeah.
So what you could do is you've got more details because people have RSVP'd on your Luma account. You could take that list. This is a lovely full circle question. Take the list. Oh, let me get up your input from Luma, add it into Clay, and then from there you might want to find the companies that they work at, and see if they've been a CMO for a certain amount of time, and then see whether you want to invite them to the WhatsApp group.
So we could build out our database of existing members and then look at prospects that we might want to invite as well. And
Yeah. So
would I be able to do all of that for free? I don't know how much the limitation.
yeah, you would be able to. You'd have to sign up to a free account, but you're not using much computing power and credits to do so. The only thing that it would cost you is to find the emails, but you most likely already have those from Luma if you were to export your RSVP list. That's a very specific use case for you there, Nicola.
That's helpful. And Ali's just asked, is there a way to use this on behalf of clients as a consultant?
Yeah, there is. So some models are people are building an agency where they just kind of build out all of this, a bit like an email marketing agency who build out your email templates for your marketing emails, and then they just give you the templates for you to send the email out. There's a lot of companies that just have Clay running in the background doing a lot of research. I ran a 100-person lead research company and Clay didn't exist. I confidently could have replaced 100, this sounds horrible to say, but 100 people's jobs with about 7 people that know how to use Clay, and we would have serviced the same amount of clients. It's that powerful once you know how to use it. Ali, the only thing that can be quite challenging is if you're doing all of the builds for you, when you give it over to somebody else, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. Sometimes I ask my clients to give me their login so I can log in and do that first bit just to make sure that I catch anything that might break.
A couple
Can you
more.
scrape Reddit with Clay for content ideas, or would it be cheaper to do with Make or similar? Tavi, again, yes, I think you can, but there's probably a better tool that's been built already for Reddit, like a standalone tool. Can Clay look at what topics people are posting about on LinkedIn? Yeah, yes, it can, Lucy. It can look at their recent posts and you can ask it to then summarize the 3 key topics with that. But this is really interesting, okay, because you could ask it to do this, but what are you really going to use that data for? And can you trust that the data that you get is going to be right? So there's a satire accounts out there that post things. I'm not sure if you saw the one that happened, I think last week, we're talking about breasts or something, got 20,000 comments and people booing, and apparently it was all a joke. Silly example, but you don't know whether that person exists in your list. And then if you're building a message based on that analysis of that particular post, which is a fringe case, it could go terribly wrong for you. So you really need to think about, like, do I really need this data? I think that's the one thing I keep coming back to. And also I ask myself sometimes, am I trying to be too smart here? Or what's the least path of resistance to get a reply or to get the data?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. What's the problem I'm trying to solve? Start with that versus, oh, it'd be interesting to know this. Is it actually going to add value? Question for me is, would there be scenarios where you suggest something different to Clay?
In life, yes. There's lots of different scenarios, Nicola. It really does depend. I think maybe if people or through the CMO circle, if they have like use case examples, I can easily go through yes, no, maybe. Um, because yeah, the answer is it depends, as it seems to be my answer for everything, I'm afraid.
Right. But make sure it is the right tool. And there's a great overview here as well of what it is great for. I know we're coming up to the hour. So, Mark, I just want to say thank you so much. I am going to have to go through that document and revisit this recording. And then I think I just need to start trialing it. Maybe for gifting, which I think was super
Yeah.
interesting. I'm waiting for my weighted blanket, by the way.
Okay, it'll be in the post.
If people have further questions, and as I said, we will send all of this round. What's the best way to get hold of you? Is it through LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn is best. There's not too many of me. There's a karate champion who's in his 70s. Don't confuse him with me. This is me with the green background. And yeah, I've got to jump onto a sales call, I'm afraid. But Nicola, thank you for having me. Thank you for everybody for turning up here. But I'm controlling the Zoom, so I'm going to have to kick you all
Yes,
out.
check it all out.
Sorry.
Thank you so much,
All
Mark.
right.
Thanks,
And
Mark.
follow. Bye bye.
See you soon. Bye bye.